welcome back to another episode, another week, another whatchamacallit, another hour in the present. You know, you got to stay in the present. So here we are at another hour, another moment, another second, a millisecond, a femtosecond. I don't know how long a femtosecond is, but we're in one right now, here and now. We're in the femtosecond of now. Stay in the present. But welcome back to another episode of Vicky's Dungeon.
Welcome!
Whew, man, another week, man. Yeah, it's been like 2 weeks since I've been on the air, dude. I had to take last week off because I was out of town. But you know what? It's been a gnarly 2 weeks. Got a lot of updates. I've consumed some content I'd like to talk about. And, yeah, man. You know, we're nearing sort of the end of the radio run of Vicky's Dungeon before I transition to YouTube. I mean, every episode gets uploaded to YouTube, but, like, because I can't use the radio station and, like, I think, like, 3 weeks is, like, the time or roughly a month. I think I have a little bit over a month left before I have to... You know, because I graduate and then I got to move away. And, you know, so that's when we're going to permanently switch to YouTube. You know, needless to say, I'm going to keep doing the show regardless. I'm not going to let the lack of radio equipment hold me back. I got my camera that I use for photography and stuff like that. I got a microphone that I've used to record music and stuff like that as well. And I'm going to put those together. And I got some video editing skills from being a film major for a while and also just goofing around with that. And we're going to continue it, man. We're going to continue Vicky's Dungeon. But first, before we get into this episode, this week we're only going to do about an hour, a little over an hour. Sadly, I was running a little late today, but you still got me, man. You're going to still get me for at least a full hour. Hopefully a little bit longer. And yeah, let's get a hey yo, Scott Hall.
Hey yo!
Thank you, sir. Rest in peace, Scott Hall. Yeah, so it's another week, man. Pretty eventful. You know, at least pretty eventful for me. I got to drive to Oregon and stay in the Shining Hotel, the one that they use for the Kubrick films, specifically for the exterior shots. It's obviously completely different on the inside, but it was still really cool. And I got to stay in room 217 because they don't have a 236 or... Is it 237 in the movie? Yeah, it's 237. I don't know why I keep thinking it's 236. But anyway, in the movie, it's 237. That's because in the book, first of all, it's 217. And the reason why, supposedly, why they didn't use the book room number was mainly because the people at the Timberline Lodge in Oregon, they were just like, hey, Stanley Kubrick, can you not use, room 217? Because we actually have a room 217, and we don't want your movie to make people too scared to visit our hotel. So can you just change the room number in the movie to a room number that we don't offer? Because we don't want to, like, randomly assign somebody a room number, and if it's 217, we don't want people to be like, oh, we're not going to sleep in there, because that's from The Shining, and that might, like, scare. It might be kind of scary. And, relatively, totally understandable request. I think the number 237 is more iconic than 217, to the point where when I found out that in the book it's 237, or I don't know why I can't talk, to the point when I found out when in the book it's 217, there was sort of a little bit of like but at the same time, 217 has grown on me, and I made sure to call ahead of time and be like, hey, I want specifically room 217 to stay in. And let me tell you something, man. I know that they only used that hotel for the exterior shots. I think they only used it like for the helicopter shots and stuff like that of the outside of the hotel. I'm not sure if they filmed a lot of the outside of the hotel, at least a lot of it, with the actual actors in the movie. I'm not 100% sure, but I know definitely they used it for, exterior helicopter shots. And I'm not going to lie, despite the fact that that's all they used it for, that hotel has a very evil vibe to it. Like, I get it that it's probably just the association with The Shining. I get that. But at the same time, dude, it still has such an evil vibe to it. It's so isolated. The Timberline Lodge, of course, it's a skiing lodge that skiers stay in. And so, of course, it's way up in the mountains. And, you know, I thought it'd be, like, not super deep into the mountains. I thought it would be, like, you know, I mean, if you live in Washington, you know, I thought it would be kind of like one of the Stevens Pass or Snoqualmie Pass kind of resorts where, like, yeah, it's, like, deep in the mountains, but it's, like, you know, there's other hotels near it, and, you know, there's kind of, like, hotels near it and also, like, some rest stops nearby. I thought it would be part of, like, just kind of an area of, like, other places you could stay and, you know, some gas stations and maybe a little, like, food mart, you know, just kind of a little area. And no, it's, like, completely by itself, deep in the mountains. I mean, it's close to an area like that. It's maybe, like, a 15-minute drive, but still, dude, it's, like, it's really isolated in the Blue Mountains of Oregon. So that combined with it, you know, of course, being associated with The Shining, and also I don't know, just like it just felt so evil. Like at night, it felt so evil. During the day, it was honestly like kind of fine. Like it wasn't like, it was actually weird because during the day, you know, a lot of people coming in and out of the place. It, you know, had music playing. It, you know, it just the vibe in the air was normal, you know, but at night, dude, you know, I remember thinking I'm only in this hotel room for one night. I'm not going to spend the amount of money I have to stay in here 2 nights in a row. Like, no. You know, I actually, because afterwards I went down to LA. I just drove to Portland and flew down to LA. And I remember thinking while I was in LA, I was like, you know what? I'm actually like, well, I'll get there in a minute. I'll get there. Anyway, so I'm in the Timberline Lodge. I walk in, it seems totally normal. Like it kind of has sort of a spooky vibe to it, but it's not like super crazy during the day. It does feel isolated and does kind of have an off vibe to it, but it's not bad, obviously. You know, I just assumed that was the connotation or association connotation, I guess, of The Shining. And, you know, I just kind of, you know, I check in, I go to the room 217, and I'm not going to lie, once I look down the hallway that it was in, the evil vibe started to kind of kick in a little bit. And then I see the room number 217, and I was kind of physically shaking a little bit before I unlocked the door. And I opened the door, and, you know, it was just a nice, cozy little, like, 2-bedroom or 2-bed, you know, room, one little twin bed and one king bed. And I'm assuming it was a family room for that reason, I guess, like one for the mom and dad, one for the kid. I don't know. I thought it was weird that it was like, you had like a queen size bed and then you just had a twin bed next to it, and like, that was it. But regardless, you just had that, and there was like a little TV in there, and then there was, you know, a bathroom with a shower. Like, it was honestly pretty small. But it wasn't bad. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I preferred the Holiday Inn and the Best Western hotels to it, but that's just me talking. Anyways, I still really liked it. It was a cool place to stay. The room itself. But anyways, you know, so I go in there, I think I just like take a nap, and then I get settled, I take a nap, and then, you know, it's like maybe, what time is it at that point? Well, I get food later, and that's fine. Like, it was fine, you know, the food itself. I just got a steak. I thought I'd treat myself, get a steak. But then I kind of regret that because the steak was okay, and I forget that steaks cost like at least like $60-$70, like wherever you go. Steaks are expensive, man. They're so good, but they're expensive. You know, I'm not gonna lie. I definitely want to go vegan, and I'm not gonna turn this into a vegan ramble, but I definitely want to go vegan. And that's one of the things that I'm going to miss once I'm vegan. But you know what? I treated myself that day to a steak. And anyways, so, you know, I got dinner, and then I walked around the area, and I walked outside, and, you know, inside, obviously, just kind of explored a little bit. And then I went back to my room for a bit, and I think I just kind of laid down and just hung out. And then once it got, like, dark outside, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go. Like, I'm a little tired, but I really should make the most of this. You know, I can just sleep on the plane on my way to LA tomorrow. Like, I really shouldn't, like, because, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was tired. I was like, let me just, like, go to sleep, and then just kind of hang out and then go to bed again, and then that's it. And I was like, no, dude, like, you're only in here for one night, and I'm probably never going to stay there again. So anyways, I go to their like upper lounge area where you can, order some food and go to the bar and stuff. And I just like took my iPad with me, my little keyboard, and I just ordered coffee because I don't drink. And I just sat there and it was dark outside. And I just, I worked on my homework, and then I started working on, my book. And I remember just like around that time, it was getting close to midnight. And I remember thinking before I went out, I was like, I'm going to try to stay up like actually, like late tonight, because I want to explore this hotel and the outside premises and everything while it's like super dark out and like no one's around. Like I want to have that same experience that Stephen King had when he wrote The Shining at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. And anyways, so it was like around midnight, and I noticed they were closing up shop, and I made sure to be like, hey, can I still hang out? And they're like, yeah, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And so they closed up shop, and everyone started going to bed. And soon enough, it was just me. Everyone had gone to bed. All the employees had gone home, and all the music was shut off, and it just was an empty hotel. And that's when, like, the evil vibe started to kick in. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to lie. I know that like it looks completely different on the inside. It's like a cozy, log cabin kind of aesthetic inside of the hotel. And it's cozy and it's nice, but there was something evil about that place, man. Like, so I'm writing my book. I'm working on a book that's like inspired by The Shining. So I thought, what better book to work on while I'm staying here? And I'm working on it for a little bit. And, I like to pace when I write to kind of think of ideas. And I remember just, pacing back and forth, and I just kept feeling like something was watching me. And, there was like a worker here and there that was like, on the night shift working, and I don't mean them watching me. I remember thinking like there is a like evil presence to this place. Like it's weird. And so I worked for a little bit, and it was about midnight at that point, because the bar closed up at around 11. And so I just kind of sat and worked for about an hour, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to have that exploratory experience that I talked about earlier. And so I got up and I went back to my room. I put my, my stuff away, and I kept my headphones. And as a great lover of ambient music, honestly, really quick, ambient music, like soundscape, kind of music with a vibe, we're in like the golden era of it, by the way. I mean, I know it's a form of music that's never been like uber popular, but honestly, regardless of that, we are in the golden age of ambient music. Any kind of vibe you can think of that you want to listen to, it's out there. Like, search for it on YouTube, and it's out there. Like, it's to the point where, like, well, anyways, there's a YouTube channel I follow called Alien Worlds, and they post ambient music, soundscapey stuff that's meant to reflect the vibe of, like, certain movies. And of course they had like a Shining ambience, and I've listened to a bunch of different like ambient Shining music mixes on YouTube, and the one from Alien Worlds is my favorite. And I remember I just put my headphones in, I turned that on, and I just explored the hotel. At night, nobody was around. Like, I think I saw one other person, and that was really it. And it was just like a maintenance guy. And other than that, it was just me. That was it. And the hotel was honestly low-key like terrifying. I mean, I know I had the music going on, but I would even at times take out my headphones and just walk for like 10 minutes with, listening to nothing. And it felt like not only was something watching me, but it felt like it just kind of felt like there were spirits, almost like some kind of evil vibe. It felt like some kind of evil vibe was like woven into the structure of the hotel itself. Like, I mean, we talk about Game of Thrones on the show, and, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you'll know that the wall is like this magical structure that the children of the forest and I believe the giants and probably the wildlings, not the wildlings, the first men wove magical spells into the ice of the wall to keep, the White Walkers out of the realms of men. And that's what I kept thinking of, because it kind of felt like evil magic or some kind of evil stuff was like woven into the building. It felt like the foundations had evil woven into them. And it was honestly probably one of the scariest experiences of my life, just like walking slowly around this hotel And it really it almost felt like I was Jack for a minute from The Shining. Like I kind of felt like the evil of this place was like getting into my head, and it kind of made me start to kind of go a little crazy. And, I paced around for about an hour and, explored the area, and it was just, I wasn't sure what to think of by the end. I wasn't sure how to feel. I didn't just explore the inside of the hotel. I walked outside of it and everything, and it was just scary, man. It was spooky, dude. And it was really cool. And then I went back to my hotel room, and of course, I put on The Shining, because what else would you want to listen to or watch? And I turned on The Shining and watched probably the first hour and a half of it before I just drifted off and just couldn't stay up anymore. And it was still really scary. Watching that, especially watching The Shining. I remember, dude, okay, this was one of the this is a time in my life now where I'm trying to face a lot of my fears. And one of the things in my life, there's very few things from specifically horror movies or books or any kind of horror media that scare me to a point that it will stay with me for years, where when I see it again, I'm re-traumatized, or it scares me just as much as it did the first time. And the one thing that always comes back into my mind whenever I'm scared, if the power goes out or I'm walking alone at night, or especially when I'm walking through this hotel at night, was the hag, old woman in the bath in The Shining, going after Jack. That is single-handedly, to me, one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. Even when I saw it in the IMAX theater, when I saw The Shining in the theater, it was just horrifying to see. I was like, oh my God. But anyways, I remember thinking, you know what, man? You're facing a lot of your fears these days. You're choosing to confront the things you are afraid of. And, the part was coming up with the hag in the bathtub. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm in 217. The bathroom is right there in front of me. And I was low-key afraid to use that bathroom. I showered in it the next day and was and I made it quick, man. I was afraid to do it. But anyways, I remember it's 1:30 in the morning. I'm watching The Shining. That part is coming up. And I'm just it's 1:30 or 2 maybe. And I remember thinking, I need to skip past this. I'm in the Shining Hotel. I'm in room 217. The bathroom is right there. And the hag, the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life, is going to come up. And I think I should just fast forward it. And then, that voice in my head was nope, you're facing your fears. You got to watch it. And I'm proud to say that I got myself through that scene, and it wasn't that bad. It was kind of not as scary as I remembered it. So it was the first time in my life where I kind of felt myself building a tolerance to that scene almost. So you know what? It was still a good time to watch it. I had fun, and I wouldn't say I had fun watching that scene, but it was cool. And then I drifted off to sleep after watching that scene. I mean, I watched a little bit more of it. I think around the point where Jack is kind of going after Wendy when she's going up the stairs, and she's swinging the bat. And I think that was the scene when I started to kind of fall asleep a bit. And then I just got up the next day. I went and got breakfast and got ready, and I just kind of skedaddled. And it was a really interesting experience. I mean, I didn't really want to leave. It was kind of weird, and I'll get to that in a minute. I kind of felt this sense of being drawn back to the place, and I still kind of feel that. I feel this sense of feel drawn back to going there. But yeah, and then I walked home. Then I walked to my car, and I checked out, went to my car, and you know what? They had a replica of the axe from the movie, and I behind the desk, and I asked if I could buy it, and of course they said no. But I'm glad that I asked. I'm really glad that I asked. And then after that, I just kind of I got breakfast, and I checked out, and I left. And it was one of the most, honestly, I know this is a word that people throw around a little bit too much because it's kind of not a lot of people fully understand this word, but surreal. I feel it's one of those words that is more misunderstood than understood, but it was honestly a surreal experience. It felt almost like a dream, and it sort of didn't make sense at times, and just, it was weird, man. Honestly, to describe my experience staying at the Timberline Lodge, of course, the, lodge hotel used for the exterior shots of The Shining, it was weird. It was scary. It was weird. It felt like a dream. It felt like this weird, lucid dream. yeah, afterwards I wasn't really, I mean, it was cool that I stayed there. I was like, that's awesome, I stayed there. But also I was like, that was also like kind of weird. That place felt genuinely haunted. And I remember saying to some of the employees, I was like, is it just me, or like does this place like actually have an evil vibe to it? And a lot of them were like, oh yeah, like it definitely does, especially at night when it gets really quiet. It has a weird haunted vibe to it. And I just was left thinking, yeah, I think this place actually is haunted. And honestly, that's probably why Kubrick ultimately chose to use it. But I digress. Anyways, yeah. And then afterwards, I remember being in LA and I remember thinking like, man, you know what? Maybe I'll stay at the hotel, because I had to drive back from Portland anyway. And I thought maybe I should drive back to the Timberline Lodge and stay there one more night, and then just drive back to Ellensburg after that. And then I remembered how much it actually cost to stay there, and I went, you know what? I'm like in debt now from staying at this place. Like I'm like slowly paying off like that now. So you know what? I'm not going to do that again. So I'm just going to drive to Seattle, take a right, and then just go back to Ellensburg. Just going to drive straight from the airport to Ellensburg. And that was a long drive, but you know, it was still a good time. I like long drives, man. I honestly fully understood that I really just enjoy driving and that I hate flying. I hate flying so much. I mean, a 2-hour flight is like no big deal, but anything beyond 2 hours, you know, dude, anything beyond a 2-hour flight is
hands down.
It sucks, man. I hate it. I freaking hate flying. 2 hours I can handle. 3 hours, it's annoying, but I can handle it. But dude, anything above that, like, ugh, gross, man. Like the last long flight I took was like 6 hours from New York to back to Seattle, and I just hated it. I was like, oh, this sucks, man. Especially because I was in the middle seat. Dude, if you're in an airplane and you're in the middle seat and it's more than 2 hours, you know, it really can only be summed up with, it totally sucks. It does, man. It sucks. Specifically when you're in coach. I'm sure if you're in business or, you know, fancy schmancy, first class, like I'm sure it's fine. I mean, you don't have to deal with that in first class. In coach, I don't think there even are middle seats in coach. I think you by default get an aisle seat, or a window seat. But still, you know, being rich is not a goal of mine in life. However, I would like to be reasonably wealthy to the point where I just am not worried about money anymore. And one of the things that, honestly, I want to work my way up to the point where I can very comfortably just afford business class, because I fucking hate flying, dude. It freaking sucks. And every time I sit on a flight, especially in the middle seat, you know, because I could have paid a little extra to get an aisle seat, because I didn't do that the last few times I've flown, I just thought to myself, idiot. You know, that's how I felt, you know. I'm willing to pay a little extra to get an aisle seat. The window seat's fine, but like an aisle seat, man. And the reason why that is because it's cool to look out the window, but at the same time, I hate having to ask people to get up so I can go take a piss. Go take a piss. I almost censored myself biologically or anatomically. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I hate flying, but I fully understood and fully learned about myself that I love to drive, man. You know, driving 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Well, the longest I've ever driven in like one go, I think, is like 3.5 hours. And that was this trip. That was me driving from Ellensburg to the Timberline Lodge. And I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it one bit. The whole trip was fun. I mean, of course, I hate driving if I'm tired. Like, that sucks. Like, I remember driving from Portland back to Seattle sometime in the last few months. And it was after I got to meet Tommy Wiseau. And I was tired at the end of that because, you know, me and a friend of mine, we started driving back at like midnight. And we got back to Seattle at like 2 a.m., I think. And it was rough. I was so tired. You know, in the last like hour, I just wanted it to be over, you know. But anyways, if I'm not too tired or if I can at least afford to stop and take a power nap, I love to drive, man. I love just like listening to tunes, podcasts, audiobooks, or just sitting in silence or talking to myself. Blah, 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 blah. Love driving. Hate flying, though. Hate it. From now on, if I can take a train or if I can drive, I'm going to do it, man. Because, you know, I might be moving to California in the next like month or two. That's up in the air. I don't know if that's going to really happen. But either way, I remember I'm planning to go to see a friend of mine near Colorado. and for like a motorcycle meet. And while I'm in Colorado, I thought, well, this is where the Stanley Hotel is, so I should probably go stay there. And I'm really hoping I can do that. And I plan to fully drive there. I don't care that it's like a few states away or that it's like an hour and a half flight. No, honestly, driving from Los Angeles, California to Colorado, I don't mind that at all. That sounds awesome, dude. I just hope my car can make it. But anyways, I'm hoping I can make that happen, and I don't mind if I have to drive for like a day or two. And I don't mind that I might have to drive from Seattle to LA. That's like 16 hours straight. I don't mind that at all. I mean, obviously I'm gonna have to stop along the way, but driving but that doesn't, I don't mind that. It sounds awesome, dude. Cranking tunes, podcasts, audiobooks, and driving for that long sounds amazing, dude. It just sounds, in one word,
this is freaking awesome.
That's how I felt. You know, when I look at the fact that I have to drive for like 2 days probably to California and the same amount to Colorado, I just think, sweet! You know, God, that's such a loud sound bit. Christ, I have to re-record that and slow it down. Suck it! Thought I'd throw that in there for you. But yeah, and also on the trip, I got to go to the Bigfoot Museum. That was really cool. The North American I think it's like the North American Bigfoot Center, I think it's called. It's near Portland, Oregon. It's right outside of Portland. And it's this museum that has a lot of artifacts and like pieces of evidence for Bigfoot. And, you know, honestly, it was really cool, man. Like I got to see this really well-made model of Bigfoot that somebody made, like supposedly like quote unquote to scale. And, you know, like whether or not you think Bigfoot's real or not, this model was the most accurate representation of what a Bigfoot would look like according to eyewitness reports. So it's like if you were apparently like a sculptor, you know, I guess read up, like did tons of research on eyewitness sightings and just kind of put together what would be the most accurate, like most likely version of what a definitive Bigfoot would look like. And he made it to scale. He made it like 7.5 feet tall, and it was intimidating. Like it was I guess to me, I mean, I've never had like a Bigfoot encounter, but to me, I thought, man, if I never have an encounter, like this is the closest I'll ever get to like physically seeing one. And this is overwhelming, dude. Like this thing is massive, you know, because I already knew they were really tall, but I forgot how effing wide they are and like how like muscular they are. And I remember thinking like it was just overwhelming and like intimidating to look at it. But it was really cool. They had a lot of footprints. They had a butt print of a Bigfoot, like supposedly Paul Freeman, the guy who filmed the Freeman footage, which to me, I mean, outside of obviously the Patterson-Gimlin film, which is most likely a hoax, that's probably the best evidence, quote unquote, of Bigfoot. But I thought he just had footprints and video of Bigfoot, but no, he had it's called a buttock imprint that they have of a Bigfoot there. You can go check it out. And, you know, I think it's cool that they put in the description of it, like, yes, we understand that this is humorous, but at the same time, like, it would make sense that given the terrain of the Pacific Northwest and how big these things are, it would make sense that their, you know, glute muscles would be enormous. So, you know what? I thought it was cool to see, and if that's legitimately a real, you know, buttock print of a Bigfoot, that's pretty incredible. I just hope we can actually get one. But you know what? I'm starting to think that if they're real, that they're something supernatural or paranormal. You know, I remember I actually made sure to talk to one of the people that worked there and ask them about their experience. And I said, hey, like I'm assuming you're a believer. And he goes, yeah, I am. And I said, like what made you believe? And he goes, well, I actually didn't believe in any of this or really cared about this kind of stuff up until 2019 when I physically saw one. That was when that's what started me being obsessed with with Bigfoot stuff. And I asked, like, oh, really? Like, what's your story of seeing it? And he goes, you know, I just was, you know, out in the woods near where I lived. And I forget where he said where he lived, but he said, you know, it was deep in the woods where I lived at the time. And I actually had like a firearm in my hand. I'm assuming he was hunting or something like that. And he goes, I just looked up and about 20 feet away, I think he said, he goes, I saw one of them like peeking at me from behind a tree. And I went, oh, interesting. And I said, like, are you, and I remember I remember thinking the whole time, I was like, okay, like, you know, maybe he really believes that he saw one, you know, because in the Pacific Northwest, like the forest is if you live in the Pacific Northwest and you've ever been into the actual like woods here, they're extremely dense. Like it gets to the point where sometimes you can't see 10 feet in front of you. Not even that, like maybe 5 feet in front of you. But anyways, I just thought to myself, I was trying to think, I tried to have that filter of just being like, okay, like I'm going to fully take this in, and who knows, maybe he actually saw one. But I'm also, like with a subject like this, I don't allow myself to be easily convinced. But anyways, I talked to him about it, and he said, yeah, like I said, did you actually see like details of its face? I made sure to say that. And he goes, yeah, it had kind of like an oh crap look on its face, like, oh, like, and he goes, the thing about primates is they have pursed lips. And he goes, it had that kind of look on its face where on its lips, on its mouth, where it looked like it was about to whistle. But I think, honestly, it was making that shape with its mouth, because really quick, Bigfoots are supposedly known to whistle, to each other, as like kind of a form of communication. Not only do they do tree knocks and, big calls and stuff like that, but they whistle to each other as well. And I thought at first, like, oh, it was probably whistling. And he went and he was like, I don't think it was actually. I think it just had a look on its face of like, oh crap, and that's why its mouth was shaped in that way. And he goes, and I remember it had wrinkles in its like kind of wrinkles in its forehead, and that kind of was something to do with its eyebrows being raised. It just had like an oh crap, it like the person is seeing me kind of look on its face. And I said, and he made sure to say it was like, he goes, it was probably 2 or 3 seconds that I saw it. But I was so, he goes, it felt like 5 minutes. Like it just, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was shocked and everything. And I asked him like, well, did you like try to go after it? Like, did you try to like run? And he goes, honestly, like I was so shocked and frozen at what I was seeing that the last thing on my mind was to run after it. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I'm assuming he went to look for it later, and because he didn't say anything more to the story. But he goes, yeah, that's what convinced me it was real. It was looking at me from behind a tree, and then it just kind of, I'm assuming, just disappeared, after like it went back behind the tree. It just was gone. And, I'm not sure if I'm not trying to say, of course, I'm not trying to say like, oh, he's lying or anything like that. But I could tell, I remember thinking beforehand, as big of a fan as I am of Bigfoot, I do understand that it's a very niche, very odd subject, and that most people that think that they've seen a Bigfoot probably just saw a bear or something like that. Because fun fact, bears can not only walk on their hind legs, but they can do it for like 20 feet at least. Like they can walk on their hind legs for like a while. So if you see something like that, if you see a bear walking on its hind legs in the thick, dense Pacific Northwest wilderness and you see it from like 50 feet away, like you're going to think that's a Bigfoot. That combined with like your brain trying to like, I think your brain just by default, if it sees any animal, it'll just try to look for any human traits of it just so you can kind of more easily understand its anatomy or something like that. It's something like that. Or I could be wrong, but I think that being kind of what your brain does by default, like if you see a bear from like 50 feet away and it's walking on its hind legs, in the thick Pacific Northwest wilderness, like I would want to think that was a Bigfoot. So anyway, what I'm trying to get at though is I was honestly kind of half expecting when showing up to the place, like the Bigfoot Museum that has like all the artifacts and pieces of evidence, or at least a good chunk of them. I was expecting some characters there. And what I mean by characters is I was expecting to meet some people that really believed that they saw Bigfoot and we're just convinced that they saw it, and we're probably going to come off a little crazy. Like I'm just being honest. Like I'm not trying to be mean, but I kind of expected to meet some people where like you could just instantly tell, okay, yeah, this person's kind of crazy. Like I don't think they saw what they really think they saw. But this guy that I talked to, I went, okay, like that's a pretty out there story, but at the same time, he's pretty level-headed about it. Like this guy, like is really well-spoken, articulate. He's, very, he kind of downplayed his story a little bit, where he was saying like, yeah, like it was, I remember him saying like, yeah, I want to say it was like 5 seconds, but it was probably like 2 to 3 seconds, honestly, before it just like went behind the tree. And he goes, but it felt like 5 minutes, which is understandable, especially whether or not, what he saw was Bigfoot. Like seeing something like that in the woods would make anybody stop, I think, whether it's a person in a mask or it's a bear or whatever. And I remember thinking like, okay, regardless of whether he saw that or not, he's a pretty level-headed guy. So if he didn't see Bigfoot, I think the next best thing is he saw something else and he just is convinced that he saw it. I don't think this guy is making this up. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think he was full of crap. And the other person who didn't tell me their story, they seemed very kind of like level-headedly convinced it was real. So I was surprised to have that interaction. And I, of course, I'm pretty sure there's people in the Bigfoot community that like have, some level-headedness to their belief, of course. And who knows what's out there, man. But I'm starting to think that if Bigfoot's real, it's some supernatural thing. Like it's something that like, you have to be in a certain frame of mind to see it. I remember hearing that on a podcast. I remember hearing on a podcast that Bigfoot, if it's real, then it's most likely not just it's more likely to be some kind of paranormal thing that isn't bound by the traditional laws of reality. And it's, and me personally, I mean, this is kind of trippy to talk about, but I personally believe. And remember, belief is for things you can't see. So don't take this as me attempting to preach facts. But I believe that that the boundaries of our reality are permeable. I remember hearing someone say that, and I just really liked the way they put it. The boundaries of our world and our reality are permeable. And, I think ghosts, Bigfoot, cryptids, maybe even UFOs as well, I think those are examples of like glitches in the matrix or something like that, stuff that's our examples of like the boundaries of our reality being able to be bent in some way. And I don't know how exactly that works or if it's even true, but to me, there's signs of, not everything being as it seems. And there's more to reality to discover than we think. And I remember hearing on a podcast about like consciousness or something, this one guy who was I think he was an expert in kind of studying human consciousness and brain activity and just how we view reality. And apparently we're reaching the point in history where reality purely just being time set upon the pillars of time and space, apparently there's more to it now than that. And yeah, I mean, we have our five senses and all that stuff, of course, but I remember the guy saying, yeah, like, honestly, time and space is kind of like a keyboard on a laptop where, the average person can understand how to use the keyboard to make the laptop work, but they don't understand all the intricacies behind the keyboard and the screen. And if they did, they would understand that there's so much more potential to what can happen than with a computer than just typing, watching, you know what I mean? I mean, maybe I don't think I fully understand that example, but hopefully I understand it enough to get that across to you. But, I'm hoping, I mean, there's a party that still wants Bigfoot to be real, but if it's real, it's not a flesh and blood animal. It's not, dude. Or yeah, I feel like it's not at least. But anyways, that was a pretty interesting experience going to the Bigfoot Museum. And, I got to go down to LA and, walk around Hollywood Boulevard and go to Venice Beach. And it was a trip, man. It was a trip. I got my nose pierced down there. I was thinking about getting a tattoo, but I kind of, tattoos I get cold feet with a lot. But I regret it. I wish I got a tattoo down there. Of course, like every time I've tried to get a tattoo anywhere, I always never get it and I always just regret it. So I got to get a tattoo. But I got my nose pierced and that hurt so bad that, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie, man. I tried my best to not cry, but in my head, I was going, and that's just how I felt, man. That's just how I felt. But I just had Brody on my mind telling me, you got it. Because I got it, man. I'm pushing and believing, and I got through it with positive energy. And now I have metal in my face, and it looks cool. But anyways, yeah, and California was cool, man. I thought it was pretty interesting. I think I liked the culture of New York City a little bit more. But California is pretty cool, man. If you want to, if you're trying to make it in the entertainment business or at least build a solid career in creativity, LA or New York, those are the places to go if you're in the States. I would love to move to London or Tokyo or something, but I'm saving that for another time, so I can't do that in like 6 weeks. Maybe I can, but I don't want to try. I'd rather just move to another American city and just give it a shot. I've also never been to Japan, sadly. But anyways, that was interesting. But what else do we want to talk about? Yeah, let's this week, anything regarding Game of Thrones talk about? Weirdly enough, there's not really much on my mind with Game of Thrones this week. I mean, we got the new full-length trailer of season 3 of House of the Dragon, and you know what? It's coming out pretty soon. It's like a little over a month, and when we transition to YouTube, dude, we're gonna talk about every episode, and it's gonna be full Game of Thrones again. And every week, just like when we were doing Dunk and Egg, we're gonna be celebrating it. And every time a new episode of House of the Dragon comes out, I'm just going to stare at my TV or look at my TV, point at it, and just go, "Give me it!" Because I'm so excited for it, man. I'm so excited. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like, LA was cool. I mean, I met a psychic there. Oh, yeah, and you know what? I mean, I know this probably happens all the time in LAX and also just airports in general, but I got to meet Parker Posey and Hannibal Buress at the airport. I thought that was really cool, and it was like in the span of like an hour, and those felt like just out of body experiences. It was really cool to meet them. I'd never like met a celebrity face to face before, and I remember thinking like, is that Parker Posey? Like, oh my God. And I went, oh, and you know, normally I'm just like, okay, like if at first I was like, I'm not going to go talk to her and say hi. Like she's probably flying sucks. I don't want to bother her. It's not a big deal. Like just let her go. And then when I was like, no, that's Parker Posey, I just thought, okay, I'm going to go say hi, but I'm going to make it quick, low key and classy and ask for nothing. Like no autograph, no selfie, nothing. So I just went up. And you know, I'm known to be very quiet-footed. I've a lot of the time will unintentionally startle people, and I guess I startled her too, even more. And she was very startled, like, oh shit, because I guess just this little, you know, dark-haired, long-haired guy just appears out of nowhere to be like, hi, and I just was like, hi, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I just loved you in the White Lotus. And she goes, and even while I was talking and saying that, I was thinking like, this probably isn't her. And then I knew it was her when that very breathy voice that she has came out and just went, oh, thank you. And I went, oh, it's actually Parker Posey. And I went, yeah, of course. And you know, I won't bother you anymore. Like, have a good day. And she goes, oh yeah, it's okay, don't worry. And that was it, pretty much. But it was a cool moment, man. It was really cool. And then I went and got food, and then as I was walking out of the restaurant, I remember thinking, like, no way, is that Hannibal Buress, like, right in front of me? And I looked, and I wasn't 100% sure, and I just went, excuse me, are you Hannibal Buress? And he goes, yes, I am. And I went, oh my God. And I just was overwhelmed at that point. I just was stumbling over my words and was like, I'm a big fan. Have a good day. And that was it. But it was good. He was nice. He's like, oh, thanks, man. Have a good day. And you know, it was nice. He was a nice guy. But that was cool, man. I'd never met like a celebrity face to face before. I'd seen celebrities live like in bands and stuff like that, but I'd never like talked to one before. And so that was pretty cool. But yeah, that was cool. And yeah, I'm excited to see the new season of House of the Dragon though, man. So excited to see it. Yeah, what else? I mean, I guess something. Let's cue in Gandalf. Let's talk a little bit of Lego Lord of the Rings right now. Oh yeah. Shall not pass! So this week I got to see the kind of full. I mean, it wasn't like. I mean, we already saw the full reveal, but it's cool that like Lego YouTubers finally can physically get the set now. And I'm pretty sure you can just buy the set in general, not just YouTubers and like reviewers and stuff like that. But Lego has now officially, I'm pretty sure, released the Minas Tirith Lord of the Rings set. Minas Tirith, of course, being the, the City of Kings, the White City of Gondor, the place that Aragorn rules from, and all the stewards of Gondor at that time, and the kings and everything. And Lego made a set of it. And I remember seeing like the first like rumored reports of it not years ago, but like I think around a year ago was when I first read that Lego was like trying to make a Minas Tirith set for their next Lego set for Lord of the Rings. Because at that point we'd gotten Rivendell, and then we got Barad-dûr, and then we got the Balrog set, kind of the smaller one with Gandalf, and I think those were the main three. And now we have Minas Tirith, and I'm just waiting for them to do Helm's Deep. I think it's inevitable that they're going to do Helm's Deep. I know they did the Helm's Deep set like in like 2012 when they had that little run of Lord of the Rings sets, but Helm's Deep, it's coming, guys. Like that, I feel like that's the next set they should attempt. I mean, I want to see Helm's Deep the most, but at the same time, I would be interested to see them do like an Erebor or Moria, because honestly, more and more these days, I'm really interested in Moria. I'm much more interested in Moria these days. Specifically not before or after the Balrog and the orcs being there. I mean like during the time when goblins just ran rampant all over Moria, and it was just this desolate, destroyed place, and you also had the Balrog lurking around. Like I would love to, of course, if I traveled to Middle-earth and wanted to go anywhere, I would probably go to Moria. I mean, it'd be in my top 3, but I'm just saying, I know myself very well to know that I wouldn't want to go there alone. So I would definitely take a party with me if I could. I'd probably hit up some dwarves and be like, hey, I'm 5'9". I'm basically one of you guys. I'm like, 5'9". What did I say? Why did I say 5'9"? I'm 5'5", thank you. And I'm basically half a foot taller than you guys on average. So I'm really just a tall dwarf. Let's round some of us together and let's go. Let's go. But anyway, I saw the Minas Tirith set, and I thought it was cool. I really liked it. I'm not sure if this is the first time LEGO's ever done this, but, you know, Minas Tirith is like this huge, like, well, I mean, medieval purists and medieval experts and all that whatever stuff wouldn't call it a huge city, but regardless, whether it's a giant village, a giant castle, or a small city, whatever the F you want to call it, it's a huge place, and you can't make it into, you can't build it to scale, obviously, for LEGO. It would be like this, if you built Minas Tirith to scale in LEGO, it would be like the height of your bedroom. It would be like the height of a door, like a door frame, and it would be like the width of, like, I don't know, it would probably be like, it would be at least 6 feet tall, probably, and like, probably like 10 feet wide or something. Like, it'd be huge, dude. And it would be probably over 100,000 pieces. It would just be enormous. It'd be stupidly big, and probably it would cost like 10 grand or something. But anyways, I digress. I really liked how they approached this new problem, where they thought, okay, we got to do a Minas Tirith set, but we can't just do like a piece of the wall or the gates or the top throne room. Like, the fans want the entire city or nothing, like all or nothing for this thing. And so I really liked how they approached it, where they just were like, okay, the bottom outer walls of this and the top of it, I believe as well, are going to be minifigure scale. Like, they're built to the scale of minifigures for you to play on them and stuff like that, which I thought was smart. And then the rest of Minas Tirith is going to just be mini scale, like mini scale Legos, where it's not meant for minifigures to be played with in it. And I thought that was a really smart idea. And at first I thought, like, oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that. That might look weird. But you know what? They actually made it work. It actually looks really, really cool. And I mean, it's still a huge set, but like, it's not like overwhelmingly big. And this is probably my favorite part of it. When you flip it around, because Minas Tirith is like this circular, kind of half circle shaped city, and it's built into a mountain. And when you spin it around the new Lego set, the back of it is a full, like, minifigure scale Lego Hall of Kings built into the back of Minas Tirith. They used all the space from the back to build that. And I thought that was so smart. And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't say this is my favorite Lego Lord of the Rings set. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I've never had a set outside of like Helm's Deep when I was a kid. I mean, like the new kind of, the new line of Lego Lord of the Rings. I haven't bought any sets. And I don't think you should blame me, because I'm in college. I quit my job. I don't have an income for a little while. And each one of those sets costs at least $500. So I don't think you should blame me. But anyways, it's not my favorite. I think my favorite from the ones I've seen, I think I just liked Rivendell the most, and I really liked Barad-dûr a lot. But Minas Tirith is still really cool. It's probably my least favorite of the 3, but it's still really cool. But I liked it. I mean, I'm excited for them to do the next thing, and I know pretty much all the fans I think if there's one location or moment or whatever Lord of the Rings set we want, like a full-scale giant set of, it's Helm's Deep. And I feel like since Helm's Deep isn't nearly the size of Minas Tirith, I feel like they could do maybe not a full minifigure to scale size of it, but they could do something sort of like maybe 75% the size. Like, where they could, still make it, like, they could still make it like it's like Rivendell. Like they made Rivendell, but it's not like the full size Rivendell. Like they made just kind of the most kind of iconic chunks of it in there and put those together. And it still looks great and it's awesome. But it's not the full Rivendell, which is fine. If they did the full Rivendell, it would just be this massive set and it would probably cost like $1,000 at least. But I will say, Helm's Deep, they probably could make, if Lego were to do a Helm's Deep set, I feel like they could just, I feel like they could do the Hornburg and the Deeping Wall and the tower as well of Helm Hammerhand. I feel like they could build it, but it would just be slightly smaller. I don't think they should do like the mini scale mixed with minifigure scale. I feel like they shouldn't do that with it, but I feel like they could make it work. I feel like they could. I mean, they made it work with like a smaller scale one in the 2012 run of Lego sets, so they could make it work. I didn't love that set though, because the Deeping Wall was like literally just like that big, and you had to like buy other like little kind of battle pack sets with walls to like make to complete the Deeping Wall. And I didn't love that. And so I don't know, maybe they will, but I will say if they don't do Helm's Deep, I think it's pretty safe to say that a dwarven fortress of some type would be really cool. Like do the Gates of Erebor or do a part of Moria. You honestly, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that this would be a much smaller scale set, but they could do the battle in Balin's Tomb with the whole Fellowship is in there. You'd have a bunch of orcs. You could put like a cave troll in there. Like you could do the full Fellowship, and then you could include like 5 orcs, and you could have the cave troll with it, and you could even have the Balrog maybe with it as well. I don't know. I'm not a Lego design expert, but I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be cool to see just one in the halls of Moria. I think it'd be cool. Dwerodelf would be really cool to see as well, because Dwerodelf kind of connects those three, because you have the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, you have Dwerodelf, and then you have Balin's Tomb, which I believe are all connected, but I could be wrong. Anyways, but yeah, pretty interesting stuff, man. Pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, pretty interesting, man. What else has been on my mind this week? I'm just kind of, I mean, I ramble every episode now, but like I'm more rambly this week than normal. I'm not as prepped as I normally am. What else, dude? I mean, Game of Thrones is always on my mind. It's always on my mind. I mean, I'm still reading Fire and Blood, finished up the reign of Maegor the Cruel, and, I kind of had my mind changed a little bit with Maegor. I definitely think he was not the best king of Westeros, but I feel like what he did to just kind of, I mean, it is safe to say that he usurped the throne from Aegon. I don't think it's crazy to think that Maegor, I don't think it's crazy to think that Maegor is sort of a usurper, but at the same time, I kind of subscribe to my own personal theory that Maegor, when he came back from exile, at the death of Aenys the First, he probably just was thinking to himself, like, I mean, he was already a pretty tough guy at the time, but at the same time, that combined with him thinking like, okay, the realm that my dad Aegon fought so hard to conquer and bring together, to protect the world from an oncoming apocalypse is falling apart. And honestly, I don't think my brother's son, who would be Aegon II, I don't think he's going to do a great job as king, because he's my brother's son. Like, who knows? Like, he might just be even crappier, just as crappy, maybe even only a little bit better. We don't need a really good king. We need a king that rules with an iron fist, because the realm is falling apart. I got multiple rebellions going on, uprisings and everything. So that combined with, like, knowing the next king would suck, and the fact that, like, an oncoming apocalypse could happen at any moment, and I'm much better in terms of, fighting, military, and I ride the largest and most powerful dragon in the world, Balerion the Black Dread. I need to just go back and take the throne and F some crap up. I got to go back there and just go crazy. I got to go back there and I got to go back and I got to just whip people into shape. That's what I got to do. So I feel like what Maegor did to, stop the faith militant and to destroy all the rebellions going on, especially with the attack from Dorne with the Vulture King and all that stuff. I feel like that part you could understand why he would be a necessary evil with how cruel he was to his enemies then. But I feel like after that, once the realm kind of, was brought to kneel to the Targaryens once again, I feel like Maegor probably went a little too hard after that. Maybe he just was like, no, I need to make sure the bloodline is secure. That's why I have 3 wives. And he was like, oh yeah, well, Aegon had 2 wives. I'm going to have 3. And he probably was thinking no, nothing can come from my brother's line. And he wasn't, I'm guessing he wasn't a fan of Jaehaerys as well. And he just was like, no, I saved the realm. I know what's going to happen. I need to make sure that the heirs of the dragon come from me. And that's why he had 3 brides, and all were killed, I believe. He has a lot in common with Henry VIII, where a lot of his, where he had a lot of wives, and it was divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. I believe he had 2 brides, I think, or 1 bride before he decided to have 3 other brides. When he kind of stabilized the realm. But yeah, none of those brides, I think, survived, and all of them were pregnant, but they all had miscarriages. And Maegor's reign came to an end after 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days. Pretty interesting. I feel like that was deliberate on the part of the author, George Martin, but still pretty cool. And I mean, I think he does deserve some credit at on the level of being, for a time, a necessary evil. I feel like when he stabilized the realm from all the crazy rebellions going on, I feel like he was a necessary evil then. However, when he became king and he's going crazy with his wives and he's, being so overly obsessed with the Red Keep being built and all this stuff, maybe you could say he wasn't super good then. But regardless, he never had any kids. All his wives died, and he died on the throne, mysteriously. Actually, you know what? I think it was 1 wife that he hadn't left. The only living wife he hadn't left. Discovered him on the throne dead. His wrists slit open, and one of the blades from the Iron Throne, because the Iron Throne is made of swords, was stuck through his neck. And it's not known how he died. We don't know if it was a suicide or if he was assassinated. It's even, debated that he perhaps was killed by the Iron Throne itself because he simply was not fit to be a ruler of the Iron Throne. Magic does exist in the world of Game of Thrones, and at the time, Visenya Targaryen was messing around with black magic. After Maegor came back to fight the Trial of 7 against the Faith Militant, he almost died at the end of that, and he was in a coma for a month. He was the last survivor of the Trial of 7, so he technically won, but he was hanging on by a thread, and he was in a coma for a month, and people suspect that Visenya Targaryen used black magic to keep him alive and to bring him back to life again. And people noted that he was a little different after that, more cruel than he was before. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know what went on with him, but it's pretty interesting. But I'm excited to read about the reign of Jaehaerys Targaryen, who was arguably the greatest of the Targaryen kings. Other people think it was Viserys II, who was probably the best. But who knows? Who knows? I think a lot of people at least agree that Westeros sees Jaehaerys II as the best king of them all. Even better than any of the kings that came after any of the reigning Targaryen kings. I mean, it's pretty safe to say that the worst kings of Westeros came after Jaehaerys II. Because you had the Mad King, and then you had, who's obviously terrible for all the reasons we know, and then you have Robert Baratheon, who was a great warrior and great battle commander and all that kind of stuff and everything like that. But when he became a king, he thought winning and ruling were the same thing, and they aren't. And he was bored of rule, and he didn't like to do it. And this is in a feudal society where the king can do, and to quote Joffrey, the king can do as he likes. And because of that, as soon as, pretty much by the end of Robert's reign, he was an alcoholic. All he ever did was party, eat. He just ate, drank, slept with, as many women as he could. He drank all the time, and he got really fat, and he turned from this tall, strong, handsome, powerful warrior to this drunken slop of a guy by the end of his reign. And did not do a good job. The realm was kind of, I think, pretty much, like, I guess, held together still, but, like, because I think a lot of houses were just loyal to the Baratheons because of the rebellion that happened beforehand, but it wasn't great. And the realm was massively in debt by the end of his reign, and it wasn't super good. And then you have Joffrey getting on the throne right after him, and that spawns the War of the Five Kings, and then shortly after the end of that, Joffrey's assassinated, and then after him, we have Tommen Baratheon taking the throne, and we don't know the end of his reign. I mean, in the show, we get an end to his reign, but not in the books. And, you know, we see, I mean, Tommen is like a child king. Like, he's not really, he's kind of the opposite of Joffrey, where he's just not really sure what to do. He doesn't want to be king. He's too, like, he doesn't want to be king. He's too, like, I don't know, he's too timid to be king. He just doesn't really know what to do. And I wouldn't say he's a bad king, really, but he's, I don't know, he's just not great. In the show, he wasn't great, obviously. But, and the Faith are having another uprising. They're violating Maegor's laws, as I believe. Or maybe Tommen got rid of Maegor's laws. I'm not really sure. Because Maegor did install some laws after he put down the Faith militant uprising at his time that basically prevented them from taking up arms. I think he said, like, the faithful are no longer allowed to use weaponry of any kind. Like, they're just not, I think it was something like that. Like, they're not allowed to take up arms. And I guess they're breaking that rule now. Or maybe Tommen got rid of it. I'm just not sure. But yeah, so I mean, pretty much arguably the worst string of kings in the history of Westeros has pretty much been, like, because I'm not sure, how long did Aerys sit the throne? I think he took the throne in, like, he was on the throne, I think, for roughly 20 years. Like, roughly 20 years he was on the throne. And then you had Robert Baratheon on there for 17 years, and then Joffrey for, I'm going to say, like, a year, not long, and then Tommen, it's probably been, like, a year or two. So over the course of, like, close to around 45 years. No, I'm going to say 40 years, pretty much. 40 to 50 years. There you go. Between 40 and 50 years, you've had these string of just really not good kings. And I think that's kind of the theme of Game of Thrones, obviously. It's just meant to display that, you know, power being given by blood right shouldn't be, that's not enough for you to be granted power, you know, and I think we all know that. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I mean, I'm just excited for the next book. Hope it comes out, and yeah, dude, and yeah. But anyways, yeah, I think I'm gonna end the show. It's been about an hour. I've gone over time a little bit, past my time slot. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week. And I know I was gonna review Mortal Kombat this week, but we're gonna review it next week. You know, I'm about to just fall asleep sitting here. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, we'll do Mortal Kombat 2 next week. But just to let you know, I really liked it. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. And it was a fun time watching it. And anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick return of Vicky's Dungeon. Vicky's Dungeon. And next week, we'll do the review of Mortal Kombat, and I'll be much more rested. And yeah. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And I guess my bit of advice this week is really... you know, I remember my sister saying to me years ago, show up for yourself. You know, there's been times in my life where I'm like too nervous to do something or like too scared. And, you know, more recently I've been just not listening to that and just been like, dude, you got to show up for yourself. Like sometimes you just got to overcome this and you just got to do it. And that's how I felt before I took the LA trip. That's how I felt before I went to the Timberline Lodge a little bit. I was a little nervous to go. I almost just didn't go. And, you know, honestly, the times in my life, like that's an example, you know, when I lived in Germany for like 6 weeks, when I did like open mics in the past, when I went to New York, it just, like, when I went to London, most of it's just like when I have traveled, but like, you know, most of the time in my life, like, you know, with traveling or when I did open mics, when I trained as a pro wrestler for a little while, you know, when I've done horseback riding, all that stuff, I was at least a little bit nervous before I did it. And there were a few times where I was like, should I even do this? And, you know, don't listen to that, man. Just go do it. Because even if it's not that great, at least you did it. Because it sucks. It absolutely sucks to not do something and wonder whether it could have been awesome or not. It's better to do it and have it not work out than never do it at all. Because let me tell you something, dude. That sense of just wondering what could have been, for me at least, it's like turned into like, it's gone from wonder to like shame, where I've been like, man, I should have done that. I'm like disappointed in myself. And I'm happy that I trained as a pro wrestler, but at the same time, I wish I lived too far away and I just did it for a summer and school was starting up and I couldn't afford to commute like 3 hours, like twice a week to go do it. Because I had like a part-time job and I had all my classes here and a bunch of stuff. I couldn't really do it. And I remember, but at the same time, I say I couldn't do it, but at the time I knew, like, honestly, you can go at least maybe once a week, maybe not twice a week, but you can go once a week. And I wish I did it, man. And I'm happy that I actually ended up actually training for a little bit and got experience in the ring and all that kind of stuff. But I wish I stuck with it to at least the point where I got to do one match in front of a crowd, even if it was 10 people. Even if it was 10 people, 5 people, it didn't matter. I wish I got it to that point. And I mean, until I get it to that point, I guess I'll always wonder how it would have felt to be in the ring in front of at least a few people, doing an actual match, playing an actual character, putting on an actual performance. So, so because of that, if you want to go do something, man, don't let nervousness, cold feet, second thoughts, whatever the F, just do it, man. Just do it. And if it doesn't work out, it's better to do it and have it not work out than never do it at all. Because let me tell you something, I'm the living proof of that wondering of what could have been will turn into regret, shame, even guilt. And it sucks, man. It sucks. So show up for yourself, man. Go do your thing, overcome the obstacles. Face what you are in fear of. Face what you're in fear of. Face what makes you nervous. just because when you get outside of those comfort zones, that's when life begins. I remember hearing somebody say, in life, a lot of people, and I mean, I'm definitely a person who's done this in life. We always expect to wait for our real life to begin. We always think, oh yeah, once I finish college, once I get more time off, once I get a better job, that's when the adventure of my life is going to begin. And you know what? Maybe that's true. And, there are times in life where you have to wait for a little while. But, you can only be a spectator for so long. And life is never going to be perfect. It's never going to be chalked up to what you think it's going to be in your head. But for me, at least in my time, I remember reaching a point rather recently where I just thought, okay, you've been a spectator for years, man. And you've done a lot of cool stuff in life, like whatever. But at the same time, you got to get rid of this mindset of when I graduate, when I get a better job, when I get to LA or New York or wherever, that's when life will begin. When in reality, life is now. It's like what I said at the beginning of the show. Life is right now. It's right now. And you can either choose to be a spectator or a participant in it. And so show up for yourself, man, and start living life now. It's not going to be perfect. It's not always going to be pretty, but just start doing it now. And whatever that is, whatever the thing is you've been putting off, if you can start doing it now, do it now. Because life is not going to ever be what you imagine it to be. But if it's best to still do it anyway, go do the stuff you want to do anyway. It doesn't matter if you're nervous, afraid, getting cold feet, or you're sad, or you're mad, or just whatever. Go do it. Just go do it, man. But at the end of the day, whatever you do, to quote Bertie Stevens, always do it with
positive energy.
Because that's what keeps me going, man. That's what keeps me going. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you guys next week. I'll see you later. Bye now.